Yeah, I can see. We're live on YouTube.
We are live on YouTube. Well, let me just refresh the screen here. And I'm sure it's going to appear. Well, anyways, those who are just about to join us, or those who are watching this video later on, whenever you do it, nighttime or daytime, hello, you beautiful soul, whether you are man or woman. Today we'll be talking with amazing and phenomenal professor. Professor. Is it?
A little bit of both, Olga.
Exactly. Laura Sarand. And Laura Sarand, she's not only knowledgeable on this topic, I must say, she's the most heartwarming person whom I know. She is so wise. She is not only professor in her field, she's also a professional speaker. And she was nominated numerous times for numerous occasions. And I must say that I'm so ecstatic and excited to share with you all the knowledge what our Laura is having about men's mental wellness. So Laura, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you.
Thank you for the invitation and the wonderful introduction, Olga, as always. It's quite interesting that we're here, isn't it? Because we've had a few conversations, but this kind of idea to share and to discuss the subject together has kind of just mushroomed. So I'm really pleased to be here.
Yeah. The thing is, it's a topic which we discussed a few times. It's something what you know a lot about, obviously, because of who you are, what your field of work is. And it's something what I work on regular basis as well. Oh, I just checked. We are live because I'm checking on the
Yes.
second machine just to make sure it's happening. And it's
Yes.
double checking. And it's something what I work a lot in my practice, coaching practice as well. And yet, even though you know so much about this, even though I know so much about this, still, you and I, we know people are not aware of that. Right? And we pay so much attention to, oh, let's support women, let's do events for women support and encouragement and empowerment, and let's organize seminars and everything else. But what about men?
Yeah.
How are we going to support
Yeah.
men?
Absolutely, Olga, you're right. And just to say right at the outset, this is not about saying that we should be talking about men instead of women. This is actually about something that we share in our kind of professional moral code, if you like, which is about making sure that people have an equal chance.
Yes.
So it's about saying that we're talking about men's health here, and men's wellness, because of, as 50% of the population, that we need to give equal time, equal resources, equal thoughts to the health and the wellness of both men and women. But what we know is from our own experience, we know from just looking, if you were to Google gender and health, most things come up as women's health. Yeah. We know from the health systems that we work in, and I know that we've got people who link in and listen to your podcasts and your interviews and your discussions from all over the world. But no matter which part of the world we go to, it's exactly the same. It's not something that just happens in England or just happens in Russia or just happens in the Caribbean. That when we think about health and we think about gender, we mainly think about women's health, and our systems are set up that way. So men's health is not something that gets a lot of airtime. So it's really important that we understand that the health of men is important for women as much as the health of women is important for men.
Bingo. Laura, I love you so much here. I love you so much here because you said it. You absolutely said it. When we women don't support our men in terms of mental health, they cannot support us, right?
Yes, absolutely. And it's a men and women coexist within this area of health and wellness, and particularly around mental health and wellness. And we know that happily, that within our societies in the 21st century, we recognize that there are men, there are women, there are people who are a whole range of spaces in between, transgender, people who identify as queer, LGBTQ, the whole spectrum. But this is not about not recognizing that. And I think it's important for us to say that for us, we recognize the spectrum. It's just that for today, we're focusing on men as an example, I suppose, of what happens when we don't spend equal emphasis on all our mental health. But there are particular things that will impact on us dependent on our gender, our sexuality, our location, and all the things that impact on us. So I think it's important that we say that, because we were talking earlier, weren't we, about what does it mean, health and wellness, and that's what people sometimes talk about. And to just say that what we do here is that we've taken a World Health view of health.
Totally.
And that means the World Health Organization identified that health is about physical, emotional, psychological, and social well-being. It's not just about illness, i.e. not having a disease or not having some kind of infirmity. So that's what we're talking about, health and wellness in this sphere. And mental health is often the platform that reflects how well, how healthy and how well we are in all those different facets of our bodies, our social life, our physical self, our emotional self. They're played out in our mental health.
Very true. Very true. I love what you said there. It's about social, it's about physical, it's about mental. And what else did you say? Social, physical,
It's
mental.
about social, physical, mental, emotional as well. Well-being. Because if we don't have and that's different from mental health, is that, you know, we know, for example, we know from research, we know from our own experiences even, that sometimes, particularly for men, it's quite hard for them to express their emotions and have those emotions kind of, if you like, validated. And that there's lots of reasons why that is, but if you're not emotionally free to be able to express your emotions, it does impact on your mental health.
There we go. Exactly. And what happens when men are raised since the childhood and they're taught, don't cry because you might look like a girl, don't express your emotions, be a man, man up. And then they go into relationships and their girlfriends are saying, oh, you never express your emotions. And men get all confused because now they don't know what to do. From one hand, they need to man up and be strong. And from other point of view, they need to show their emotions. So what is right? What is wrong? Like, how can men deal with that? How they can actually find themselves? And also we have now society push from all over the world where they say how you're supposed to be. But what about them deep inside?
I know. I think the actual labeling and the social expectations around masculinity, what it means to be a man, is one of the things in society that we have to look to, and it is about that either enables and supports our emotional well-being or not. I mean, you talk there about examples of the impact, you know, on women in partnerships or relationships with men, where there is this lack of, you know, maybe they've not had the support or been enabled to express their emotions. Equally think about that as well, and this is something about the idea of masculinity. So if we think about men who may be in same-sex relationships, so gay men, for example, many of them will still have had the same messages through your head in terms of what it takes to be male. And so, you know, when we're thinking about relationships, you know, there are specific things about the relationships, whether or not your relationship is a heterosexual relationship, man woman, or whether it's a relationship of same sex. The messages that we are fed around what it means to be a particular gender impact on how comfortable we are. It impacts on how much we accept our own self and sexuality, how much we're able to accept other people in a relationship, and it impacts on kind of how people in a relationship are able to navigate their way through that. Because let's face it, we all know, you know, it's never a smooth ride. There are ups and downs, and sometimes you have to ride the roller coaster. And if on top of that you've got challenges around how you can, whether you're able to express how you're feeling emotionally, you're able to express what the world expects of you, and you're able to talk openly about the things that impact on your health, that's yet another thing on top of everything else that you would go through as part of normal life.
Very true, very true. You know what, I love what you said there. How do we accept somebody the way they are? And I think, I wonder what's your opinion on this, but I think this is one of the issues which men are facing in relationships. When they step into the relationships, and they, of course, whether it is, gay relationships or these straight relationships, they want to please their partner. They want to make sure their partner is happy. And what happens, very often they are doing anything, whatever it takes to make them happy, which means their partners are changing them. They're not accepting men for the way they are. They take them as marriage material and they change them.
Mm-hmm.
And they either bitch test them, or they either push them, or they moan, or do whatever it takes for another partner, very often to amend and reshape original men who they were in the beginning, who, with whom they fall in love with, and with whom they chosen to have the life together. They are reshaping them into whatever figure they want to see. And men is going through so much pressure to suit that person, to please their partner. So what's your opinion on that?
I think the thing is about acceptability and accepting there's two levels of acceptance that have to take place to give us healthy relationships, whoever those relationships are with, whether it's with our partners or whether even within our families. There's the internal acceptance that has to take place about yourself and who you are. And then there's the external acceptance of the other person and how that person sees you. And there is a balance to be had here. And I think often one of the things about the way in which we grow emotionally and we evolve and we develop as emotional human beings is that balance, the balance between the acceptance internally and what's expected externally. And I think that is where sometimes, the kind of way in which masculinity, if you like, or being male is thought about in society sometimes doesn't help that kind of ease with yourself. It's interesting that if you go back and look at the words that we use when we talk about illness or not being healthy, we often talk about disease. And I'm sure everybody here will know, but remember that comes from two separate words coming together: dis-ease, and that means not being at ease. And it's usually an imbalance between something. In the physical, it might be in a physical sense, in terms of health, it might be an imbalance between your body function and what your body's required to do, a balance between not being able to perform in the same way. The same thing happens emotionally, a dis-ease between the internal sense of self and the external sense. So who you know yourself to be and how free and able you are to express that, whether it's in a relationship or whether it's in society. For example, if you think about gay relationships and gay individuals, gay people, there's a hurdle around the coming out, because it's about letting out into how easy is it for you to be yourself within a society that may or may not accept you. And similarly, if you think about that within a straight relationship situation and thinking about masculinity, how easy is it for you as a male to share the fact that you are not well, that you're not coping, that actually you don't actually feel well, you don't feel strong, and maybe you just want to cry? How easy is it? How much dis-ease is there between your ability to do that? So the whole sense of health, is much more than the physical. But often it's played out in the physical, or played out in the emotional, or played out in the mental health. So all these things come together. So it's, somebody may come, for example, and complain of constant headaches, and that could be a physical cause, but it could be a way in which their dis-ease is manifesting itself.
Yes, exactly. You know what's fascinating? I will share it in a minute. We have a couple of people who are viewing us at the minute, and I would love to hear from them actually what they think about this as they're watching us. I think it will be quite fascinating to hear their opinion. Yes. So feel free to comment your opinion about what do you think, how easy it is for men, and if you're a man, how easy it is for you to share your feelings, your emotions, your problems, your issues, and everything else? Yeah, so we'll be looking forward to some comments. We'll be really fascinated to hear. But what I wanted to share from my side, Laura, I cannot tell you how many cases I have with my clients when they would come to my office, and there will be different reasons why they would come. There could be anger management, there could be they are depressed, there could be they are suicidal. So the reasons why they would come to see me would be various, right? But there was really interesting phrase which I heard again, and again from all of them, right? From big blokes, you know, like rugby players, big head, big neck, big body, right? Super tall. And I'm like, hello, right? To some guys, like, it doesn't matter, right? What the color, what the height, what profession they were doing. I must say that doesn't matter what issue they were coming with to see me. What was fascinating, again and again, they were saying the same phrase. Olga, within, time could be different, 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, depends, you know, what point they share during the session. But they would say, Olga, I never spoke that much about me in my life. And that eye-opening, that is really eye-opening. How often men have space to share how they feel emotionally, how they feel physically, how they feel spiritually, how they feel at many other aspects in their lives. And it is shocking how many men, they still hold back. But, you know, my question is, because yes, of course, they can come here and they can seek help and they can get that help. But how can we help masses, right? If we could give, let's say, because you mentioned 4 areas, right? And in your opinion, if you could give, let's say, 3 tips in each area, what man could do in order for them to feel better, to maybe express themselves, to maybe improve their well-being in each area, what they could do, you know, what would be your wisdom, like takeaways within each area, let's say 2 or 3, whichever you can come up with.
Okay. Well, I think the first one, I probably will start with the emotional, because that's the one that maybe is the one that people think about most in relation to men's health, i.e., you know, the ability to, as I say, be at ease with and be able to express yourself emotionally. The first thing I would say is that it's important to create a situation which enables you to speak. Okay, I mean, one of the good things about doing this, for example, is this is a space that we've created to give permission to speak, and that's something that men often need. They need permission to speak. So I mean, we see it often. Again, you might if you think about your own relationships that you have with males in your life, whether it's your boyfriend, whether it's your husband, whether it's a father, whether it's a son, whether it's an uncle, a brother, it doesn't matter, the male relationship. And I think that is key here, that we all, whether we're in a relationship with a man or not, we have men within our lives where this is important. You know, that's if we're not a man ourselves as well on top of that. So create those spaces. So, for example, one way would be to, so in creating a space, that means something that makes you feel comfortable. So there may be a particular person that you feel better, easier to talk to. It might be somebody in your family, it might be someone, it doesn't really matter who that happens to be, and it doesn't even have to be another man. It may be another man, it may not be. So create a space. First thing is, find somebody that you can speak to and practice speaking. Don't wait until that you're actually got a problem to do that. So there is something about, for yourself, learning to speak, learning to use your voice, and learning to talk about not just what you did, because men have many conversations which start with, you know, oh, today I did this. So they're about facts. They're focused on action and not focused on emotion. So find someone you feel comfortable with and then practice speaking about emotion. And one of the easiest ways to do that is actually not necessarily to speak about how you're feeling now, but do you remember a time when?
Mm.
So, I remember a time when I felt like this, and talk about something in the past, because that's something that I don't mean something deep and meaningful. You don't need to do that. But it's actually things about, think about the emotions: happiness, sadness, grief, joy. And think about, can you give an example? Can you talk about, do you know what made me feel joyous? What makes me feel? So it's almost like you give yourself permission to talk, not quite in the third person, because it's all about you, but you're not having to say, oh, today, this is how I feel. And it's not a problem to be solved, but it's just practicing speaking. So they would be the two things on emotion. Find somebody that you're comfortable to speak with about your emotion, and practice speaking about how you feel or how you felt, just using those words. So
Yeah.
that would be the first thing. Physical, I'm going to come to next, because physical health is often one of the things that is either the trigger for men's emotional and mental well-being, or it's the or physical issues, physical dis-ease, are the reflection or the consequence of emotional, mental not feeling very well. That's how it often is played out. And if you wonder, kind of why this is important, is if we look at men's health compared to women's health across the world, in every single country of the world, okay, there is a disparity, there's a difference. Men fare worse than women in relation to health. Women in every country live longer than men. Doesn't matter how poor the country is, doesn't matter how rich the country is. Women live longer than men, or men live lower length of lives than women. And in the countries, it can vary anywhere between 6 and 8 years difference of life.
That's quite a lot.
That is a lot of life lost.
Yeah.
That's a lot of time not with families. That's a lot of time not seeing children or grandchildren grow up. That's a lot of time. And it's also a lot of women and a lot of men, depending on the nature of your relationship, who've lost a partner.
Exactly. That's
So
true.
the loss of time, and remembering that the most precious resource that we all have is time.
Yeah.
So if we can actually make men's physical health better, we all gain time with our fathers, our brothers, our cousins, our brothers and sisters. We all gain time.
True. True.
So the physical is one of the things I've noticed around physical health with men. You'll probably know that in whichever language we use, we tend to say to what I've noticed in my medical experiences, the question that's often asked to men is, are you all right?
Mhm.
Yes. Whereas the question often asked to women is, how do you feel? And the answer that men give to the are you all right tends to be yes.
Because what can you ask? What can you
Because what can you ask?
when
It's
they,
a closed question. Yes
yeah,
or no. Okay. So the physical health, men do have poorer physical health generally across the world. And I think when you know that as a man, and you know that what you're by talking about and by raising a question or saying, I'm not actually feeling too well, think about those 6 to 8 years of life you potentially have to gain with the people that you love. And the reason one of the reasons, there are two things that we find, is one is the men either report illness later, that's one of the things that puts them at higher risk, or they have poorer treatment adherence, as we call it, i.e. if you go to the doctor, when they finally go to the doctor or whatever, the doctor gives them a prescription or tells them what to do, and they are more likely than women not to cash the prescription. The prescription's still in the car or in the glove compartment or in the bag or in the pocket weeks and months later.
yeah, yeah,
So there is something about, so the first tip is about be aware of your body. You know your body the best.
yeah,
You know when your body is at ease and things are working well, and you also know when your body is at dis-ease.
yeah, yeah.
Trust your instincts around your body. So that's the first thing. Listen to what your body is telling you. And the second thing is make sure that you've got the bravery to act on that, whether that is you need to tell somebody else in your family, again, worthy person's emotion, it might be someone different, but follow up, because the biggest killer of men in physical health is late presentation, going to seek help too late, and not sticking to the treatment.
Yep. Agree.
So that's what we need. You need to be able to do, because it's not a coincidence. If it was just about money, or if it was just about access to health, then you would find that men who were financially better off, or who lived in places like we do in the UK where we get free healthcare, their health should be the same as women. But worldwide, it's worse.
Yeah.
So therefore, we have to say there is something in a behaviour, the behavioural reason on top of everything else that's actually making the health worse.
I agree.
So that's the physical.
Yeah.
The social is really important. I think particularly at the moment, while we're in, you know, worldwide, we're facing a pandemic, worldwide, we're facing different levels of lockdown and isolation, that the importance of social well-being to everybody at this time couldn't be more crucial. Mm-hmm. But again, think about the places and the ways in which many men, not all men, but many men, on average, again, when we look across what is most usual in males, most men socialize in places that are social. I know that sounds like a but they socialize through attending football or attending sports, which are group activities. They may socialize through, you know, going to pubs or going out for drinks or whatever. That's how they socialize. Now, you might say, well, women do that too as well. But women also have other backup ways they socialize. They socialize by getting round together in each other's houses, which is less common for males than it is for women, for many other reasons. Women also socialize verbally, quite openly with friends. So they will chat for hours on their phone, they will, etc., etc. That's not the way men socialize. So there's something about the ways in which we socialize, and particularly at the moment with COVID and with the restriction on movement, men are more likely to suffer from isolation, which we know statistically then makes them more likely to, unfortunately, be the victims of suicide or depression arising out of isolation. So I think about the ways that you normally socialize. So social well-being. We're all being forced in a way to do much more of this that we're doing, being online. And I see much more men using it online. But make sure that you check in. Who is the person? You have someone you check in with.
Yeah.
And that's a two-way street. So people checking in with you, but also you checking in. Even if you're feeling low at a time, if you check in with someone else, that's a positive action which will help them and help you. Mm-hmm. So we need to create the situations in which we have that social connection.
Yeah.
We have that social connection. So the isolation is one thing. The other thing around social connection is often and again, we find this, the research shows it. I mean, I've been, as you know, working and researching around mental health for over 25 years. But one of the things I've learned about men is that men socialize much more openly when they're single. Yeah. When men are in a relationship, they socialize less independently. And that's not about whether they're with a woman or a man who's letting them go out. But often what happens is the partner creates the social situation. So they don't have to actively make their own social links, because they go to work and they have social people there. They might go to football and there's social people there. But most of their socialization when they're in a relationship, married or not, is actually in a partnership socialization sense. So men are more likely than women are more likely to keep the friendships of people they had when they were single. Yeah. Men in relationships tend not to do that. So again, when you're isolated socially, who are you going to call? Who are you going to ring? Who is the person? Who are the people? So it might be a good time, I think, in this time to reconnect with people they may not have had connections with.
I love that.
I mean, I know talking about my own, I mean, I've got friends from when I was, you know, in primary school, you know, but my partner doesn't necessarily, they haven't fallen out. They've just kind of drifted apart. And this is a good opportunity. No one's going anywhere. So it's a good opportunity to reconnect, I think. Because all this helps our mental well-being. And for men, it also helps your physical well-being as well. And the final thing I wanted to talk about was psychological. We talked about emotional, we've talked about social, we talked about physical. We'll talk about psychological, which is slightly different from emotional. And psychological well-being is about feeling that as human beings, we are created to progress, to learn, to move, to develop. So what is it that you're doing to help yourself develop? And again, is it time to relearn a skill you used to have? Have you at the back of your cupboard got a guitar that you used to play when you were younger, and time to restart? And it's the psychological stimulation of our purpose that helps us to have a sense of ourselves, because your psychological well-being is about a sense of self. And this is a good time to learn new things, to relearn, to revisit. And it's all about re-enthusing our sense of self, and and the psychological is the place in which any dis-ease that we have is first noted. You know that feeling where you think it just doesn't feel right?
Yes.
Your psychological going, something's not going on here. And people might dismiss it as, well, maybe it's just boredom, maybe it will pass. And those things could be true. But I think in the situation we're in now, I think there is a sense in which sometimes this has done us a little bit of a favor. I mean, COVID-19 as a pandemic is absolutely globally devastating. But like all pandemics, I believe that what it actually does is just shine a light for us as a society, as communities, and certainly as individuals, to what was there anyway. So the bits in our systems, whether they're national systems or personal systems, the bits in our systems weren't really at ease, but actually with all the hullabaloo and the noise of living life, we can get lost in that. In the quiet that we have now, we can listen to that tapping on the shoulder. We can hear whether we are psychologically well, whether we are socially connected, whether we are emotionally strong, and whether we are physically able to work and to do what we have to do. And I think on a psychological sense, take a time to listen to yourself, and take a time to learn, relearn, or revisit something that gives you your own sense of identity and worth and well-being.
I love that. Really love that. I was just making notes to make sure people can actually read this later on about all these areas. And I'm so grateful you shared so much, because you covered literally every area. Tips within every area. Honestly, I was just making sure, I can listen and I can type at the same time. But this is so valuable. And what you mentioned actually about this psychological thing, about learning something forgotten and learning what will make you who you are as a person, and will make you grow, will stretch a little bit. I think it's so important, because just like with friendships, going back to the social level as well, just like with friendships, men leave friendships behind, and they leave their hobby and interest behind as well. As soon as they go into relationships, woman is taking over their lives, and then come on board, and then a household is coming on board, and then everything else is coming on board, and eventually man is losing his identity.
And I think the thing is, it's important to stress that this doesn't happen overnight. This is something that becomes a norm over a long period of time, and it's certainly not that one partner is taking from the other. There's something about, as you in the relationship, it's almost like something so silent as you don't always notice it. So no one can take anything that you don't give up. And often, even if we talk about the friendship thing, that I think is a really good example, is at no point that any couple that I've ever known, or certainly in my own relation, do they sit down and go, do you know what, now I'm going to stop seeing my friends and you're just going to see your friends. It's not that way. It happens over a slow period of time. But I think what this period gives us is an opportunity to reconnect to our whole sense of health and wellness. Because those 4 pillars that we've talked about, they're not just for now, but they are the things that keep us going on in decades and in generations as we move through our lives. Because, you know, things happen to you in your life. You know, you meet people, you may not be, your relationship may work, it may not work. You may age, people move away, you know, you have families, different pressures. That's normal pattern of life in the world. And how well we are in those four spheres, physical, emotional, psychological, and social, they are the things that kind of keep us balanced and sustain us, you know, so that, you know, because there is something about holding on to all of yourself that gives you strength. So if things are a bit rickety in one sense, you know, then the other three things need to be strong. Think of a stool, a table, a chair with four legs. If one leg is wobbly, the table will still stand. But if you've only got three legs and one becomes wobbly, it just falls over. You know, so we need to think about that. There are four elements within us that need to be at ease. And if not, the dis-ease is what impacts on our health and wellness.
Beautiful. You know what? This is the most beautiful analogy, honestly, because it's easy to understand, it's easy to envision as well. And when we take care of each leg in our life, in terms of each area of our life, well-being, health, and everything else, this one actually we feel well balanced. And if men and women, because again, we're not just talking about men and women, when both parties will take care of themselves, of those four legs of the table, this is when they're going to have well-balanced relationships, right?
Yes, it is. And I think as a society, we as adults can do what we want. But equally, if we are as parents thinking about, you know, raising children, and if whether they're our children or they're children within our family, and we have more of a group communal responsibility for them, then it's important that the male child as well as the female child have that sense of you know, the need for balance and ease in all aspects of their life.
Yeah.
And that's what we need to do. And I think that was what will future-proof us in the future. But there are many things we can do now. Your body, your mind, your emotions, your social thing is already sending you messages. And now is the time to listen and to act on those things.
It is definitely time to listen, to act on those. And I hope those notes, which I was just posting below the video, will help those who just will join in later and will watch this video, you know, the replay, because I'm going to be posting that on YouTube. And I hope that will really help the listeners, and particularly men, to actually understand it is important to speak out about their health, to speak out about their emotions, to speak out about their interests, their hobbies, their friendship circles. And so fascinating how, you know, coincidentally, today I was making actually a video on relationships, because Friday is my relationship on my social media. And I spoke about, should you keep social circles active, like as in friendships, and you know, going out with your friends and traveling with your friends after you step into relationships? And my answer on this is absolutely yes. Whether you're a woman or man, you should keep your friendships, because this is when you are full of identity, because your other half will never be able to replace absolutely everybody in your life. And when as a man you were having quite active life with your sport activities, or, you know, meeting with friends, going out or doing whatever, and you had conversations, whether they were deep or not, that's different question, right? But still you have social life, and now you step into relationships and you forgot about yourself. Well, it's time to step up. Step up. Time to talk about yourself, about your health, about your well-being, because healthier you, healthier family. That's I know we have a saying, happy wife, happy life, but you know what? It's not only wife.
That's true. True. I mean, if I was to give a tip to anyone who's a partner of a man, you know, male, female, what I would say to them is a good tip. Just one tip for them is change the question you're asking. So instead of asking, are you all right? Ask, how do you feel?
I love that. I'm just typing that here so people can see.
How do you feel?
How do you feel? I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah.
So we can ask that as a general question. We can also ask that as a directed question. If you can see, say, if you know something hasn't gone well, you can say, how did it go? Because that's asking about an action. You can say, how did you feel about that today?
Yeah, I love that.
And again, it's about giving permission to speak.
Yes. Yeah, I love that. I absolutely love that, because yes, it is something what we women ask each other, but at the same time, if you give man enough time to gather his thoughts and to gather his emotions and feelings together, then they'll be able to answer the question.
Yeah.
It happens very often, and I see it very often when I have couple here for coaching. I would ask something man, and man would go, into the box and he will try to find, which box relates to that question, and it takes some time. Well, the woman would sit there impatiently and will say, come on, so what do you feel? What do you think? I'm like,
yes.
Time.
But I think that's a really good example of the difference of how used people are, how men are not necessarily used to talking about that, which is why I think that practicing, for the men putting themselves or making situations to enable them to practice is one thing, and for their partners to ask them questions that gives them permission to speak so they can practice. Because not everybody can, if you've spent 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 or more years answering one question in a particular way, you almost are waiting. And often when I've spoken to men in my health work, they'll say, well, no one's ever asked me about that. Because they're waiting, what they've learned is, or what they've been socialized into, is to respond appropriately. So if they're not asking how you feel, then for some men, not all, that's not what you asked me though. They asked me about, whether I was all right. And that's sometimes where the confusion comes. So I think we can all help our partners and the men in our lives and wherever they are by asking them the right questions and helping them to create the opportunities to speak. Because the silence around men's health is what's killing males.
Oh, this is so powerful. You just said it. Honestly, Laura, you just said it. The silence around men's mental health is what's killing them. Yeah. This is the killer phrase. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Laura, you know what? I must say that the time flew.
Oh, wow. It did. We must have been having fun.
Absolutely. I must say, you shared so much value. You gave away so many tips. I was busy typing them all down. They're all there below the video. But I am so ever grateful for all your wisdom, everything.
You're welcome.
Because this is so valuable and this is so, so helpful. And I just wish every man who will watch this video and every partner of man who will be watching this video actually will be able to reflect on it and also help men to be healthier and happier in order to build happier families. Because as I said earlier, happy wife, happy life is not really that true anymore. But the silence, as you said, Laura, the silence around mental health of man is what is killing them. Yes. So let's speak about it more. Let's speak about louder. Let's actually bring it up on the surface. And all thanks to you, an amazing woman.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yes. But as I say, hopefully we will speak again and, speak about other things, so it will be a pleasure.
Let's do that. Well, I must say that I'm absolutely delighted to have you already booked to speak on my authors live show on Facebook on Monday, 11th of May, right?
Yes.
Where you'll that's right. Amazing book. I'm really excited to hear about that. So you can share the main takeaways of your book, the main tips of that. And you know what we can do actually to give more value to people? How about, if you don't mind, of course, how about if I'll post the name of this book below this video? So maybe people who will watch this video, they'll be able to maybe purchase this book, read it, and actually have more wisdom of yours on the 11th of May. Would you be okay with that?
Absolutely okay with that. Our next talk is going to be about the sexual health of men, which is an area that I've researched for well over 20 years and worked in as a previous nurse and sexual health worker myself. So the book is entitled The Sexual Health of Men, and that's what we'll be talking talking about. So we'll be getting more emotional, possibly a little more intimate, but it will all be for the good of men and women.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. This is for benefit of both genders, because obviously
Yes.
it's about relationship between the two. And if men are healthier, then the healthier is relationship, and the healthier woman is, the healthier relationship is.
Yes.
It's about
As we said, just to remember that, what we are invested in is at least another 6 to 8 years more time together.
yes, exactly. And that is good goal to work for. That is definitely a good goal. Well, Laura, thank you so much. I'm so
Thank
ever
you.
grateful. I'm sending you my virtual kisses. I'm sending you my virtual hugs. Next time I see you in person, I will
Virtual
definitely.
kisses, virtual waves.
Yeah. And thank you so much,
Yes.
everybody who joined us watching. It was good to see numbers raising whilst we were here, and it was good to share with you this value. If anybody has any questions, how, Laura, they can be in touch with you, could you please share details of where they can find you? And I will definitely tag them below the video.
Yes, I'm on LinkedIn and under my name, Laura Serrant, where you can find me, and we're linked together, so they can find me. Your many followers can find me through LinkedIn. I'm also on Twitter, and we can put my contact details at the bottom. So, and again, I'm on Twitter as my name at Laura. Soon my new website will be launched, so you'll be able to find me there as well. And I'm also on Instagram. I go by my name, so I'm easy to find.
Wonderful. That's wonderful. So, dear listener, if you have any questions, please do contact Laura. Please do contact me if you have any questions personal to me. And we will be definitely thinking about making them maybe more regular and to bring more value to you. But we'll see you again on 11th of May at 1 p.m. UK time on Facebook Live, where Laura will be sharing all the wisdom about men's sexuality. I'm so excited to hear it. Thank you so much, Laura.
Everybody be safe.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yes.
Thank
Everyone
you.
stay safe.
Bye.
Thank you, Laura, so much. I'll be just about to finish this video.
Bye-bye.
See you all soon.
Bye.